Hello and thanks for listening to our podcast once again. This morning I will talk to Erik Bolks and Steef van Gorkum, and of course I will talk about the jury show of the first semi-final we saw yesterday night. We're going to talk in depth about what we've seen and heard, of course, from these countries. But first the overall show with a couple of technical errors, Steef, that were a bit concerning when it comes to the real show tonight.
Yeah, especially when you look at the volume of the problem, right? Because we've seen in previous years that it happens every now and then that one country has some technical errors, and then because it's a jury show, they can perform again. But last night it was four, so we actually spoke to Sietse Bakker after the show because we wanted to hear some kind of explanation from him. He said there was a problem with the in-ear microphones of these artists, that the artists reported this themselves to the technical crew, and that they're currently working at a solution.
Erik, you are one of our musical experts in our team. What makes it? Can you explain for people what makes it so difficult when you have a problem with your in-ears and you have to still sing?
Well, when you're on stage in Eurovision, it's a wall of sound, and you cannot hear what you're singing. So you need those in-ears to hear what you're singing, and you have to get used to it. So if something is wrong with the in-ears, like there's a delay or something, it terribly goes wrong. And I think in Ukraine you could hear that she was out of time.
Romania, you could hear it most,
Romania was perfectly off key, you could say.
but also out of sync almost with the music.
Yeah, that was obviously horrible, and she actually, somebody said she took out her in-ear just to sing along. So,
But she got a second chance, as did Ukraine, as did Malta. We didn't even notice Malta had the same issues, and Azerbaijan we really didn't notice. And they themselves said, yeah, we're good. We don't need another attempt. Very strong message, I would say. But first about Romania and their second attempt, because it was much better.
Yes, it was, and I think that was important for her because Roxanne, for me, has always been someone who is more of a televote-friendly entry because of the clear demographics of that song. It will appeal to teenagers, to young people. Juries are a bit older, a bit more dated, so they tend not to go for contemporary songs like that. So in order for her to get enough points on the jury side to qualify, she needed to be at her very best, and I think in the second run-through she was.
Could it help Malta and maybe even Azerbaijan more if the juries picked up like, hey, they had the same issues, but they were still very good even when they were having these issues?
Malta definitely, because they performed a second time and then she was, well, basically exactly the same as the first time. So it's very obvious that she had issues, but that she gave two perfect performances. Azerbaijan, you could argue, because she was very brave in saying, I don't need to perform again, I'm fine with my first run through. Now I'm just wondering whether juries will know that she had those technical issues, but if they do, this can be very much working in her favor.
That's the end of the show. Of course, there's a whole bunch of countries that came on stage before that, starting with Lithuania. What are your thoughts, Erik? Is Lithuania an entry that could do well with the juries as well? Most people see it as a very televote-friendly entry, of course, but how could they have done yesterday night, you think?
well, yesterday I told you this might be an entry that juries might forget because there's a lot of things going on afterwards. And if juries don't remember that the singing actually was really good, they will only remember the silly dance routine, and then they might just put it a little bit lower, but still they will qualify as juries.
This opens up our first conflict of the of the morning, because I don't think juries will forget entries, because juries, not like televoters, televoters need to pick one, maybe two acts, and they will vote on that. But juries need to make a ranking of all the 16 songs. So it's kind of impossible for a jury to forget an entry, right?
To forget about it, it's impossible, but the quality you might forget. I wouldn't rate the juries too high on this level, actually. So
I think I kind of understand what Eric says. I mean, of course, juries take things seriously, they take notes, and they don't just forget stuff. But with Lithuania, as with a few other songs as well, we've seen over the years that juries sometimes neglect the fact or disregard the fact that it's actually very well sung, or that there's actually some vocal or some artistic quality in an entry, if they perceive it as a gimmick. And with Lithuania, although I think in the current field that will not be that bad. But there is always that possibility that some juries think, oh, silly dance, we're being fooled here.
Slovenia might be a song that focuses on the jury more than on the televote. She didn't have her best night, and then I'm saying it in a polite way.
I mean, large parts of the vocals were still fine. First sentence was a bit troubly, and that always makes a first impression on jurors. So I think that could be costly for her. And my biggest issue with it when it comes to juries is that they changed the bridge of the song, not only in the composition, but also in the fact that she's now walking the catwalk and shouting into the audience, which is a big red flag. So despite the fact that I still thought most of her vocal performance was really good, and it's a very jury-friendly song, I think she may have caused some trouble for herself with those two issues.
What Steve says is a sure non-qualifier for me now.
What about Russia? It's when you talk about these red and green flags, Dave. There's also an article on our website what we mean with that term, but we've used it for a couple of years now. Russia really as both. They have some things in their performance that you say, yeah, the juries will pick up the quality of this, but also some aspects in their act that you could flag, like juries usually are not really into this.
Yeah, and that's a difficult one for me to judge this year, Russia, because we put it somewhere in the middle right now of the jury ranking, but it could be it's something that could be much higher or much lower depending on what juries will eventually pick up. There is that dress change that could be perceived as a gimmick. There's the fact that they're changing between genres within the song, even though I think they do it in a very nice way, but juries tend to not like that kind of stuff. But there's also the message of the song, which is something I think juries will pick up on. And she did it very well last night.
What about Tusse? How did he do?
He could have done better, but overall it was just the same like all the other performances. I think because it's very non-offensive, juries might like it, but the televote will not.
We, after the Swedish performance, finally saw yesterday afternoon. What was the first time that we finally saw the full backup tape from Australia, including sound. We saw it already, but we couldn't hear it earlier last week. Tell us all about it. Technicolor. What can people expect tonight? Who will see it for the first time?
It's actually quite a good performance. I was positively surprised. Already I was very happy with the visuals when I saw it. I was happy that Montaigne chose this very intimate setting, this nice dark lighting, and this strong choreography, I would say. So I'm perfectly happy with that. Vocals was something that we were maybe a little bit concerned about before, but she came through this, I think, okay. It was one of her better live performances that I've heard.
It's also a difficult song for me to judge when it comes to a jury show, because it's in a genre that we haven't really heard that often at Eurovision. And I had a bit mixed feelings. Like the genre, I don't know if that's something for juries, the way they present themselves with the 70 disco colors and stuff like that. I thought, that could be something juries dig. How do you stand in Australia and how they could have done yesterday?
I'm still hopeful juries focus on what the artist really delivers. And this is quite a difficult song to sing, and she did it really well, where we expected to do very badly, to be honest. And I think juries will like that.
So it's in with a shot for tonight.
It is what?
It is in with a shot for tonight, when the envelope's open.
No, I'm not sure about that. I put it myself on the 10th place for qualification, so...
Well, that's being in with a shot. There will be 10 qualifiers tonight. Do I need to explain the basic rules of Eurovision for you after 12 long years?
Well, let me say this. She's on the safe side of the danger zone.
All right.
No, I mean it's a borderliner, and I think that Australia did everything they could with that live on tape, but it's unprecedented. That's what I wrote in the blog yesterday as well. Juries, it's impossible not to notice that she's not there, even if you lived under a rock for the past couple of weeks or months. Then you will have then juries will still have noticed it last night that she's not live here in Rotterdam. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? How about televoters? How are they going to react to it? It's a first, so we simply don't know.
What about Vasil? He is next.
I mean, that's classic jury food, isn't it? Because that's the thing that does so much better with juries than with televoters. And it reminded me a lot of Claudia Faniello from Malta, who we saw in Kiev, who we then gave a very high rating in our jury blog. And people called us crazy, basically, because she was in last place with the bookmakers to qualify, as is Fazil. And yeah, she ended up with 0 points at the televote side, but she would have been a clear qualifier with juries. Same thing could happen with Macedonia this year, actually.
Yeah, important to tell you about the article of yesterday. It's how we predict the jury result. We are not saying when you rank these stars, these are the 10 qualifiers. No, we're ranking it as we think the juries will make up their mind. So we're not, to be clear, we're not calling Macedonia last place for the bookmakers as a definite qualifier.
No. It's not. It's not a definite qualifier. But the reason we do the show like this is because we. I mean, there's two shows for every Eurovision show. There's two performances: the jury show and the televote show, and they're actually equally important because it's 50% of the results decided on both nights. But one show gets broadcasted to the entire world, and the other show doesn't. And so that's why we focus on this jury show, and we focus on the people that are voting on that night, which are the juries, to try to give our audience, our readers, an idea of how that show went and how the voting might have gone.
There's a short break after Macedonia, and then Ireland is up. How did Leslie do?
Oof, that was not good. Off key, screaming. No.
Agreed?
Yes, and this is, I mean, we talked about this. She has that performance with the cardboard things. If she does everything great, if she would have sung well, if she would have played with those projections well, then it could have been an added up. You know, it could have been an extra bonus. And now it could be the other way around because she didn't sing well. Then all of a sudden, juries might see it as a gimmick and rate it even lower than they already did.
We have the fastest transition in Eurovision history, going from Ireland to Cyprus to Norway. It's almost like athletes when you see them in the venue doing their thing. All the people getting the props on and off stage. The rest of that block with Cyprus and Norway, are they both for televote and jury top 10 finishers?
At the moment, I would say yes. Cyprus, of course, climbing with the bookies even higher and higher. In the current semi-final field, I think Cyprus is a qualifier with juries as well, although there are some potential red flags that I highlighted in the blog. And for Norway, actually, it's the same. He had one of his best performances, I would say, last night. After a shaky start, the last 2 minutes of the song were vocally really, really good. He had that thing where he showed himself, took off his sunglasses and really showed his tics, basically. And I think that kind of stuff works, even more maybe with televoters, but definitely with juries as well. It's still a potential gimmick, you know, with the wings and stuff like that. So it's difficult to say how much the FOP effect, as we explained on the website, is in play here. But yeah, so I don't think either is a big jury voter, but I think it will be top 10 for both.
Your thoughts?
I think Norway is a sure top 10 for both juries. And Cyprus, I think the juries will put it a little bit lower because her vocals were not off pitch, but they were not sounding very nice. If I hear her singing live, it's like she's burping a bit. So I think some juries might think the same, but maybe I'm the only one in the world not liking it.
Could be. We have Croatia, Belgium, and Israel, of course. Two of the 6 female up-tempo songs we've spoken about last week, of course, many times. And Belgium squeezed in between them. Let's go by them. Croatia.
Couple mistakes, but definitely not her worst performance of the last few weeks. I don't think that this is something for juries, also because of the outfits, because of the combination of the entire thing. She doesn't look particularly comfortable with the projections at the start of it. It's not a Mans factor, if you could say it like that. So that's not a top 10 for juries for me.
And then Belgium and Israel?
Belgium, I think, is a very jury-friendly act, especially the way that they staged it. She didn't have her best performance last night when it mattered most. Potentially nerves, because especially the beginning was a bit rough. I still think in the current field and with the running order draw and with the way they staged that song to make it very credible, they made it easy for juries to think, okay, this is quality, this is what we are supposed to vote for. So I still think that they will be top 10 with juries. And then Israel came after, and that for me was one of the weaker vocal performances of the night. But I think that we have someone on the show here who disagreed. He asked me after the show, oh, except for that one note that she missed. And I was like, okay, which one note do you mean, Eric?
Well, it's obvious Dave doesn't like the voice of Eden Alin. The performance, I think, why I rated it higher is that she is a charismatic performance. She seems to enjoy and she expresses herself very much, and that comes across very clear with Israel. So that might be a plus point, but still she won't qualify.
Are the high notes also something that juries, way more than televoters, pick up and reward?
I'm not sure. Maybe televoters will reward it as well. But it will be a little bonus, but if it's enough, probably not.
And Belgium and Croatia?
Belgium is actually the only music first song in this competition this night. I think juries will like that because there's no gimmicks and poespas, we say. Poespas is like...
I really don't know. No, rubbish is rommel, troep. Poespas. Let me think about it. You talk first.
Think about it, poespas. And then I have to talk about Croatia. Well, I think it's a very childish song and it's not very well sung, so juries will put it very low.
I think poespas means when you get all these things, like Ireland has a lot of poespas. There are all these things brought onto the stage that don't have really a meaning to the song. Like the hot air balloon for Ireland was that 2017?
Everything in the kitchen sink, I was thinking. Maybe that's a nice explanation for poespas. But yes, Dying to Try, that was the one that they just brought something in for no apparent reason.
And the literal translation of poespas is you just got a kitten.
No?
You just got your pussy. That's the literal translation.
No, it's your permit to have a cat.
Okay, anyway, we're going off topic now, so it's time to end the podcast of this morning. Tomorrow morning, of course, we will talk about Azerbaijan. We already did, right at the start. It's not the juries who forget stuff, it's you. I'm starting like Graham Norton. It's you. What about you? So tomorrow we will talk about the actual results of this first semi-final of the Eurovision Song Contest. It's a potential minefield, this semi. We could be very surprised with the actual results. Leave your predictions on our website ESCDaily. You can hear it. Surely have a great day once again here, and we'll check in tomorrow again. Bye bye.